Look at this thing that I've got today. We have an original Phat Nintendo DS. Thick boy. Ooh, okay. It was claimed to be untested. Straight up, we can see that top screen's cracked, which is a shame. But I've got screens, so that's not a big deal. Overall though, you know what? Not bad condition. Hinge is still intact, which is pretty cool. Let's plug it in, see if it gets a charge. Got the amp meter running in the background there. 0.26 amps. Look, battery's tagging something. That's a win. And the charge light was on, so let's see if it's gonna boot, because that's a good start. Green light, no boot. Green light, no boot. Top screen's flashing. Bottom screen gives us bugger all. We've seen this before. We know what to do here. We're gonna open it up, and we need to inspect that bottom screen, because chances are it can't connect back to it for some reason. So let's get this back piece off. Start with the battery cover. If it wants to come off, that'd be very handy. And like most Nintendo things, they like to use the tri-wing. So have your tri-wing handy. How many screws? Let's hope I don't forget any. It's been a while since I've opened one of these up. And I missed one. Typical. There's always one. Gotta be one. Always one. Alright, let's get that back piece out of the way, and straight away we can see that cable's not connected. It doesn't appear to have the connection on it, which means someone's been in this before, which is always a shame, because you never know what they've done, what they've fiddled with, what they've broken. Who knows? So let's get this board out, because we need the board out so we can get to the screen, since that screen is buggered, and so is the connection. That bottom one is the connection for the touch screen, I think. Top one's normal screen still. Bottom one, I think, is the touch screen connector. It's missing its little brown clip, like I've just pulled out on the other one, which shouldn't normally happen, so hopefully it goes back in. We're in. Crisis averted. Now that bottom one, we're going to need a brown clip for that one to hold that touchscreen cable connector in. Otherwise, we could have issues with that. So let's get this board out. Another 4 screws from memory. It's standard Phillips at this point. Once you get inside the Nintendo gear, they usually go to Phillips again. It's just the tri-wings on the outside. They don't like you getting in there. So that board can come out now. Overall, the rest of the board, not bad. We'll take that screen out as well, since that's no good to us. So bam, we're out. The touchscreen is hopefully still alright. I want to reuse that because I don't have any of those in stock, just the screens. And it is a shame about that connector. So we'll get under the microscope and see what we can do about that connector. So let's locate it. There's the P6, which is a little worse for wear, but it's still there. P5, missing the brown clip. Problem. Big problem. Without it, that screen ain't going to go in all the way. This one did seem a bit wobbly, loose, strange. but it might still hold its own once it's clipped into the cable. It seemed to still hold up before. Just want to check out. Yeah, that's not supposed to happen. I mean, realistically, you don't really go in here to play around with that bit, so I think once that's all reassembled, a screen in there, it plugged in, it should be fine. We've got a donor board here, both clips in those connectors. I want to see how easily it comes out. And it doesn't come out. So there you go. Let's, rather than me breaking another brown bit, we're going to swap the whole connector just for the sake of keeping this in one piece, we should say. So P5 and P6, they look the same, probably do the same job, so we're just going to use either. I'm going to pull the P6 off to put it on the P5. I know, dangerous maneuver. Heating from below as to not melt those connectors because they are plastic. Since I'm heating up from below, I've got the hot air station full ball here because it's the cheapy Chinese one. So we've got that connector off. There's our good one. I'm going to line it up on here. There's only 4 pins on it. And if I do it under my microscope, because my microscope's the cheapy Chinese one as well, I can't heat from below. So, board holder thingamajig, as always, is going to hold it in place. Hopefully the eyeballing of lining that up is alright. Clamp it down and heat it up from below again. Hopefully we're on a winner here. Get that PC5 down. It's not moving. It's a good sign. So there it is under the scope. Pins aren't moving. I think we're on a winner. Look at that. Soldering. Love it. Seems alright. P6, P5. Their soldering, my soldering. What's the difference? Doesn't look too different. I think it'll be alright. You can definitely see a little difference in those clips though. That top one looks a little, there's something about it. Just going to solder the top and the bottom of this thing because I didn't have any solder on those pads when I did the reflow from below. Only the actual pins. So I'll touch it up from the top, beauty. Touch it up from the bottom. A little bit more solder. There we go. Yeah, it looks a little rough. Probably needed a bit more proper flux down there, not that stupid pen, but anyway. We'll work with what we've got. We'll spray the IPA as always, give it a clean, get rid of that excess goopiness of flux. Shiny, I like that. Alright. We're gonna swap this bottom screen over and see if our connectors work. There's my new screen. There's no little protector on the front piece. I'm going to leave it in the bubble wrap for now until we're ready to put it in the display against the touch screen, so we minimise the amount of dust getting in between the two. Take that foam piece off. You want that. That's insulation for the bottom screen, so that when it touches the board, it doesn't short out the board that foam comes off nice and easily. Completely different to the DS Lite where they don't come off at all and you've got to insulate it yourself. It's going to clean the digitizer. It scrubs up alright. Not many scratches or anything like that on it. Looks pretty good. So hopefully the digitizer is alright and I can reuse that on my new screen. Just give it a little pry tool, slicing tool, whatever it is. Run around the adhesive edges of that digitizer and it'll pop right off. And it's, look at that. Looks alright. I mean, I don't really see an issue in this screen, but probably had dead pixels or something like that, I guess. Why else would someone cut the end of it off? Seems bizarre. Let's, as quickly as possible, digitize it on the screen. There's nothing on the screen that looks bad, so no dust or anything like that from pulling it out before. Press them together, put it into the slot, see if it lines up. If it doesn't, just wiggle and jiggle. It's all good now. Put the insulation back on. It looks silly, little piece of foam, but if you don't put that back on, your console's not going to work properly. So do not forget the insulating foam. And we're Gucci. Let's put this board back in. You got to run the cables for that lower screen and touch screen through the middle of the board. Also, once they're through, you got to do some wacky stuff with that top screen cable and the Wi-Fi. That is the Wi-Fi cable. Because the Wi-Fi board, you can see there, is actually soldered onto these hard motherboards, unlike the DS Lites and so forth, where they're all external things. Well, I hope that's the Wi-Fi board. That's what I assumed it was. It looks like it. It's got the cable running to it. I'm fairly certain it's just a soldered on Wi-Fi board. Get those plugged in. You should be able to, I mean, I'm using my little tweezers there, which you've got to be careful about because those tweezers are quite sharp and that ribbon cable's flexible. As long as the darker part of the cable is in line with that white line on the board there, generally got it in far enough. Because if you don't get it in far enough, it still won't work. Put these two under cables in first. Top screen. That brown connector still seems to work alright, so I'm happy about that. Moment of truth for our bottom connector on the touch screen here. Looks a little funny. I'm probably off my chops. I think it is alright. It's been a while since I've opened one of these, so I was doubting myself. We'll get that in for the touch screen. Hope our connector's soldered on properly. Seems to go in. Just need to make sure it's all in all the way on the brown connector piece. Whatever you want to call that doobie whacker is in. It's the flappy bit for the screen connector was a bit chocked up with flux, so I'm just giving it a bit of a clean out with the alcohol again. As always, alcohol comes in handy all the time. This also has the handy little white line guide for how far in that brown tab needs to be. So as long as you're in as far as that white line on the board is, I don't know why they stopped doing that. Well, I do know why. They don't like you repairing your own gear. But there's a handy little indicator. So with that all in, let's a couple screws in so it holds in place. give it a test of Rooney. Let's see if this bad boy can boot up now. That would make me quite happy, knowing we've done that connector alright. Oof, there we go. Top screen very visibly cracked, as we already knew. That touchscreen appears to work, so we know our connector's all good. Look at that. It's in Japanese, I can't read that. I'm pressing the wrong buttons. Yeah, pressing the wrong buttons. And the battery's let go. Either way, we know it works now, unlike before where it'd just green light and turn off. So we're going to put these shoulder buttons back on. Make sure you got the springs on them too, so they actually work. Spring-loaded style. Peel. A little bit of a trick to it to get them in. Kind of angle it as you do it. Unless you just don't screw the board in, because you can put the shoulder buttons back in before the board then. I think it'd work out alright. I don't know, haven't tried that actually. But given the way it looks and works, it could work. It could work. So we'll run that Wi-Fi cable around that hole for the back cover. We'll get that screwed back in. Battery cover back on. Let's do this top screen. Because ain't nobody want a smashed up top screen on their Phat DS. I'm getting my small flat blade. It's going to peel back on these little rubber feet thingos. That exposes the screw holes. Very similar to actually the same as the DS Lite. DS Lite has the 4 little rubber pieces on top as well with the screw holes. The difference being these rubber feet are a little bit different. The top 2 are thicker and a bit 3D-ish. They stick out further, whereas the bottom 2 are flat. DS Lite, they're all flat. Different design. And once you get those off, there's just the small flat blade again. Now those top 2, actually I think all 4 of them do, but they've got adhesive on them. And that adhesive was still stuck to the head of that screw. That's what I was trying to show you back there. Don't know if you can see it, but not a big deal. But that's how the plastic piece is stuck into the top there. It's been a while since I had one of these, so I can't remember if it slides or if it just pops off. Ooh, there you go. Okay, it just pops off. It just pops off. DS Lites, they slide. They've got little slidey grooves, but these ones, they just pop off. So, and the good news is when you're placing the top screen on these, you don't have to disassemble it from the bottom, because it's not like a DS Lite where the top cable runs from the top screen to the board itself. It's actually got an in-between cable as such, I guess. I don't know what you're going to call it, which runs from that little board there you're seeing now to the main board. So the top screen and the bottom screen are actually the same on this DS. It's not a different screen for the top and the bottom, it's the same screen, which is actually really cool. Quite handy. I'll just get rid of that. And with that out of the way, got our new screen there on the side. So to get this old screen out of the way without breaking anything, preferably. It's got a little bit of adhesive holding it in, nothing too extreme, pretty straightforward. Make sure there's no gobbledygook on that lens, because we don't want to put a new screen in and have a bit of dust build up or pieces of cat fur and stuff in between there. That'd be no good. There's a little packer as well to keep the screen in the correct position. I should have cleaned that inner lens first so I could see, but I didn't because I'm a noob. And there's me head. There's a little white speck in the bottom right, top right, bottom right, top right. I don't know, bottom right. It's gone now, either way. And the speakers fell out as well. Not a huge deal. They go back in quite easily. They're not soldered on. Again, different to the DS Lite. So let's get this plugged in. I'm glad the clippy bits are all on this top section, still on this one. Get that in. Nice and secure. Because if you don't get them all the way in, you're not going to boot. It'll just be bomb like at the start. Screen flash, no boot. A very common problem on these things, and it's following devices. Get that in. Cable that goes from top to bottom. Probably a bit annoying if you have to replace that because it goes through the hingy bit and you got to do the twirliness with it. We don't have to do that today because our hinge isn't broken. Bit of a bonus, makes me happy. So I'll get this screwed back in once it lines up, of course. Oh, don't forget to put your speakers back in. So they've got little metal contacts on the back on which just come in contact with the board once they're screwed down, which is easy. I think that's probably easier than the soldered DS Lite versions, but again, it's a bit of a different setup. Little Phillips head. Bam, in. Done. Almost done. Okay. Make sure the cables are out of the way. And of course, let's test it before we do anything further. Because the last thing you want to do is package it all back up, put all the covers back on, and then realize what you've done hasn't actually worked. So I'll just find my other screen. Boom. Electrical tape first. Just use that tape, hold that down so that it doesn't get in the way. What's going on? Why isn't it booting now? This battery ain't seated properly for whatever reason. Fussy thing. How's that? Alright. Okay. Ooh, look at that. Mint. Happy with that. Let's get this all back in one piece. Jeez, that outer shell is a bit rough on the edges. Oh, not the edges, all over it really. Dark spots and stuff everywhere. But let's think about it. When did they launch? How many years ago was that now? Surely we're at 15 years. Surely. It's held up considerably well given the age of it. It seems to work. These screws back in. Hopefully that adhesive on top of the two screws is still good. I do have double-sided tape which looks pretty thin, identical to that, but I'll have to cut two little squares for it. I don't know if I'd get the sizing right, but that's not the big deal here. Let's just get it together so it doesn't fall apart. We'll try and put the squares back on. one in. Bugger. Oh, that bottom one's not feeling too solid at all. Oh well, we'll skip over that for now because that's the least of our concerns, let's be honest. Bam. Hello. Oh, look at that. Good as new. Still in Japanese. I can't read Japanese. Alright, before we get too far, why don't we whack some games in it? See how it plays the games. The buttons, they should be all fine. They're pretty good clicky buttons. Not like the membrane stuff. Well, they do have the membranes in there, I think. But they felt nice and clicky. Nintendo logo means it's read the DS slot. Beauty. One in the Game Boy Advance. There we are. Alright, we're on for a bit of a win here. So don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll keep doing what I'm doing. We'll see you in the next one.